Hi Cubies, here's Alexandra again, and welcome to Painting Essentials number 12. Today we are talking about palettes, especially wet palettes, and how to easily build one. So, what is a palette? Well, obviously you're opening your painting containers and you're taking out the paints onto your palette. So you can adjust the paint accordingly on your brush and properly paint your miniature. Well, normally a simple sheet of plastic or something like that would suffice to, well, start painting. But if you want to go more serious with your paint job, you want to have a wet palette. Well, what is a wet palette? I will explain it right here, right now. So, a wet palette, for that you need a plastic container, a flat one at that. Best suited one with a lid. I highly recommend exactly this container. This is one from Games Workshop. Well, it is the container that Games Workshop uses to sell their static grass in there. And as you can see, it fits perfectly here into my workspace on my little paint station here. And this is the reason why I use this. You obviously can buy one from, for example, Army Painter or Redgrass Studios, or there are probably other companies out there that sell them, or you could use some sort of Tupperware, whatever you fancy. I prefer this one. So, the next thing you want to have is a sponge. And what kind of sponge you want is quite special. So, you might find something like this in your kitchen. This is a normal kitchen sponge. And as you can see, it is, well, textured. And this is not the kind of sponge you want. You want a sponge that looks more like this, with a plain surface. Why that is, I explain in a second. Because after you have laid in your wet sponge into your Tupper container, let's place it down. Whoop. Just like that. Well, you will definitely not put your paint on the sponge. You need something on the sponge, on the wet sponge, that you put your paint on. And what is this? This is simple, straightforward, not waxed baking paper. Like this. I have some pre-cut sheets here. Here I have a whole stack of them. I pre-cut them in the right length, and I have them here to, well, quickly exchange the sheet on my wet palette. So you take those and you simply place them on the wet sponge. And here you can see now why we want a sponge that is not textured, because you want to have the sheet to have contact all over the place. Well, it rolls a little bit at the beginning before it is properly wet, but we can fight this a little bit by pressing it down. So, and there you go. This is now your wet palette. What this does, it's quite easy. The baking paper is porous. That means porous. It means that water will go through it from underneath to the top, but the paint is too thick. It will not go through. So this wet palette will now provide your paints with water from underneath. And that means they will stay longer fresh while painting. They will probably not be able and workable after a few days if you keep the lid closed, but if you maybe put on the paint and you're painting and then the phone rings, you wash out your brush and close the lid. After the phone call, your paint is absolutely workable after that. Still, normally if you have that on your dry palette, it will dry out in that time. So while you're on the telephone. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for the wet palette. I hope you like this little insight, and we see us in the next video. You're Alexandra. See you.